Coming up on the Booth Review, oh, London, that close to 8-2.
Yeah, but we have to turn the page quickly and get ready for the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday night.
Yeah, we'll share some memories, good and bad, from hanging out in that stadium on the Booth Review. Welcome into today's edition of the Booth Review podcast, powered by Microsoft Surface, powering a better game. I'm Bram Whiteside with Big Fletch, one of the greatest linebackers in NFL history, London Fletcher. And we haven't done this in a month, London, talking about a game after a loss, heartbreaker yesterday.
Yes, it's definitely a different type of Monday coming on here and talking about a hard-fought game where we end up coming up just short against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, I thought we had it and thought we were in control of that game, but you can see why Pittsburgh is one of the best teams in the NFL year in and year out, and why Mike Tomlin is regarded as one of the best coaches in NFL history. But I thought we let them get away with that game, and we're definitely kicking ourselves that we weren't able to close that deal, close out the game and win that game.
Let's talk a little bit about the things they could control and the things that they couldn't.
You work on situational football. I'm sure they were talking about, hey, watch the hard count. Like, it was emphasized in the huddle, and then yet, you get in the heat of the moment, and I'm sure Russell Wilson maybe said, ha. I don't want to yell in my house as loud as Russell probably did it, different voice inflections, and Johnny had a mental lapse and end up lead to us not getting another opportunity to see what we can do.
Honestly, I was sitting there looking at you the whole time going, they're not going to seriously run the ball 3 times and then punt it back to Jaden Daniels at the end of the game. Like, have they not been paying attention? Because what happened at the end of the first half. Go look at what happened to the Bears. Go look at what's happened over and over and over. They were playing with fire. They got lucky that happened. I mean, honestly, I don't know, and I trust this quarterback, which is where I feel a little bit robbed today, that in 2 scenarios we could have had, if the referee spotted the ball differently or if there wasn't this penalty at the end of the game, we could have seen Jaden in one of these clutch end-of-game moments, and we just didn't get to see it yesterday.
Yeah, no, not at all. It didn't surprise me that Pittsburgh opted to run the ball in those situations because, you have 2 things can happen when you throw the football. You can have an incompletion, you can have or interception. Really even 3 things can have a sack. So you also don't want to have an incompletion, and Washington doesn't have to use a timeout. So you want to make sure you're forcing them to use their timeout. So maybe you run it twice, and if you're going to throw the football, it's a safe pass. Maybe you give Russell a run pass option, get him out on the perimeter. Something that's really safe. The Steelers also ran for 140 yards, so they're figuring like, hey, we've been able to have some success running the football, so why not run this ball 3 times, force Washington to use their timeouts. But yeah, them getting a little bit conservative. Hey, Mike Tomlin, he's been in a lot of big games, man, and they don't flinch, and that was apparent yesterday.
I mean, I want to get back into Washington for a moment, but since you just mentioned it, because we've seen the Ravens in person, we've seen now Pittsburgh in person. These are legitimate threats to get to a Super Bowl this year. Pittsburgh feels so old schooly. We saw it on film coming in. It's not a surprise. They're running stuff that is age old, tried and true. This is how you win physical football. They have a large, imposing group. Their tight ends are large and imposing. Their running back is kind of Derrick Henry light. They don't do anything really fancy. They run the ball at you. They run play action off of it. There's very little formations that fool what you're going to do. Defensively, you could probably be more inclined to talk about what they do that's favorable for them and why they're so successful. But there's something about watching this going, I see all these crazy offenses, and we have one right now that's very creative and very open-minded, does a lot of different things. These guys are playing the sport the way it was played in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, tried and true. They will pound you to death. You just have to stop it, and I do appreciate it. And now seeing them, they're built to win. They don't ask Russ to actually do a ton. They're an impressive football team.
Yeah, no, when you've been, the head coach and the structure front office, they've been together for so long. They know it was much like the Patriots when Belichick was there for 21, 22 years, however long he was there. They know what their offense and defensive structure is going to be. We know what type of players we want to draft. We continue. Pittsburgh has always had pass rushers, going all the way back to as early as the '90s when Bill Cowher was running it. They're going to run that 3-4 defense, have some outside linebackers rush the quarterback. They're going to have a huge offensive line, big tight ends, a big back, going back to Bettis and whoever else you want to plug and play at that Le'Veon Bell and now Najee Harris. They're going to pound you, run play action. It's not going to be pretty at all times. Their front seven is going to be dominant. They'll have. You mentioned you could have also mentioned they got a playmaker who has the ability to make dynamic catches as well, and George Pickens. So yeah, we can run the ball on you. We got these big tight ends, but in critical situations, if we need a play, we can go to George Pickens, and he's gonna win a majority of his contested catches, 50-50 balls. Adding Mike Williams to that mix, it's a blueprint for success, and Pittsburgh, they're definitely going to be a player in the AFC.
Yeah, and they're coming along. Washington caught them off a bye. They're getting healthier. They've had 5 different offensive line combinations, 9 different starters. Their line's getting healthier. They got one of their primary players back, Cordero Patterson, who's I don't know how they're going to use him, but he's a weapon. They finally got him back. They found some ways to utilize him. There was a perfect storm that was happening here, because I'm going to get into what was happening with Washington. They're off a bye. They're a very good team. They walk in. They're getting healthier. This team is not, specifically in a couple of critical areas. This was going to be close the whole time, and this added up to, and I think really largely, the sky is not falling here. They lost
not at all
to a team that looks like could contend, and I know it's disappointing, but the timing of the relative health, especially on the offensive line and the offensive weapons on Washington, versus what Pittsburgh was bringing in here rested, there was a recipe here that this was going to be very hard to get a win yesterday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But with that being said, and you talk about the offensive line being a little banged up, and I thought Trent Scott played a really, really good football game. I had a chance to watch maybe the first half of the game from yesterday. He did some really good stuff. You saw his veteran savviness. They gave him some help against T.J. Watt, in moments and things like that. The B-Rob, Mr. B-Rob, the 2 games where we haven't had him, the game against the Baltimore Ravens and yesterday, those are games when you're playing big physical football teams, and it's going to be a grind out. It's going to be a four quarter type of game, and you need to be able to run the ball, effectively and be more balanced on offense. And you look at the game against the Ravens when we lost to them, we only ran the ball 18 times for 52 carries. Yesterday against the Steelers, ran the ball 22 times for only 60 yards. Yet we threw it 34 times. That's not the balance. That's not the recipe for success, and the reason why we've been able to win, 7 games up to this point. So getting B-Rob back healthy and whole is going to be critical for us in these games, November and December. So having a healthy and whole Brian Robinson Jr. and it's not a knock against the other backs or anything at all, because I thought those guys, have excelled and dominated their roles. But B-Rob's just a different element, man. He's a different animal.
Listen, we can talk about Eckler in a moment. I think he's been outstanding the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
Specifically, protection in the Giants game for sure. And then he's scoring touchdowns. They're asking a lot of him now. All of a sudden, he's carrying more of a load. I think he's been excellent the last couple of weeks in B-Rob's absence. When you go back to the Ravens game, because the Ravens were the way they were playing run defense at the time, I kind of had the sense that Washington was going to throw the ball a lot anyway. And I remember going up there and talking to you about it, going, this is the first time we're going to see a pass-heavy Commanders team. Let's see how they do against a very good contending type team on the road, where they're going to be a little bit out of their comfort zone. They're going to ask Jaden to do a lot more with his arm than he has in the past, and they lost. So I landed on B-Rob would have made them better, but I'm not sure it would have been a critical difference in that one. Last week against the Giants, they were really, Chris Rodriguez was outstanding. Eckler was
Yeah.
outstanding. They were able to run the ball. But if you look on the whole, and this is where the trouble spot was coming into this week, because the Giants don't have the rush defense that Pittsburgh does. But if you looked on the whole, the per rush average was down. Everything was a little bit down. All the signs of why this team needs Brian Robinson so badly were there and evident. And I did feel like yesterday was the one of the three that he's missed. You were going to feel his presence not being there, and it showed with one of their roughest outings trying to get yards on the ground yesterday.
Yeah, you talk about feeling presence, and part of feeling presence was Pittsburgh, because we were, dropping back and passing so much. Their defensive front four and linebackers, every now and then they would bring a safety, a nickel, things like that on blitzes. You felt the presence, and they only sacked Jaden 3 times, but oftentimes their presence, like keeping him contained. He only rushed for 5 yards, just not allowing him to really get through things, and having to maybe deliver a throw a hair faster than he wanted or a hair sooner than he wanted because of that presence. Part of having a B-Rob in the game also is your ability to pound a team, wear them down, slow down their pass rush, because now they're a little bit more tired because they've been getting leaned on a lot more. You're not going to tire out a defense running the ball 18 times against the Baltimore Ravens or 22 times against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another thing, the element of play action pass. Play action pass is it's also to suck up the linebackers and safeties on the second level, but it's also to slow down the pass rush. And when we had some success moving the football, when we went early down play action passes and Eckler was making some great blocks and things like that, we were able to make plays in the passing game. With that, you add B-Rob to the backfield, that defense, they're going to be keenly aware of him and say, all right, we're gonna be gearing up to stop him in this rushing attack.
You feel his presence. He's a tone setter. He's going to match the physicality of the team they're playing against. That's one of the really great things that's popped up here throughout this year is all this, you're going to like the way we get down, you're going to like the way we play. You see this week to week with the physicality that the Commanders put up against, especially very physical, formidable teams like Pittsburgh. But there's just these minor differences, like when Robinson runs and when he's out there, that per rush average just up a yard more than what it was is the difference between 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7 to 2nd and 6. And it's a massive difference for what kind of calls that they can make on those plays. That's where you feel him. It's the physicality, it's the tone, and it is on the margins here. And I felt like they were going to miss him big time. And I think they did yesterday. And hopefully he's healthy soon. I don't know if he's playing Thursday or not. Hopefully he's healthy soon.
Yeah, no, I agree. You say 2nd and 6, and let's take it even one more down. 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 3 is a lot easier to convert as opposed to 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 6. And so, yeah, we can both agree that B-Rob makes a big difference.
So the other thing that was, unusual was Jaden not running the ball effectively. We haven't seen that this year. Now, he only ran the ball 3 times, and I think only one, if I remember right, was actually a designed run. There were a couple of scrambles, and there was one late where he nearly got away from an ankle tackle.
That was a
play. But he wasn't using his legs much. So I wonder what you saw from Pittsburgh, because he's been great at escaping. They use the designed runs, but he's been great at escaping. That didn't happen yesterday. So what did you see from Pittsburgh to try to limit him a little bit?
Yeah, they're extremely disciplined in their rush lanes integrity. They go against Lamar Jackson twice a year, so they have great experience going against a quarterback who can escape the pocket by time, and they didn't allow him to step up in the pocket. They got great interior pressure. The outside pass rushers, whether it was T.J. Watt and Highsmith, they were rushing hard on the outside and up the field, and that forces quarterback to step up. But Haywood and the other defensive tackles did a great job of getting that push, and sometimes they ran games, things like that. So it wasn't really anywhere for Jaden to go. when the receivers weren't open right away, and he tried to maybe escape and buy time, just wasn't anywhere for him to go. As it relates to, there was the one design run that you mentioned that defensive tackle made a great play, limited Jaden to 2 yards, because if he doesn't make that tackle, I think he's gonna get definitely 10, maybe 15, 20 yards, and we're probably in field goal range at that point. But I thought the zone read option, or the read options, they did a nice job of just forcing Jaden to hand that ball off, and their linebackers were playing so fast downhill. They ran through gaps, and sometimes they were untouched, so they were able to handle the running backs. They were telling their defensive linemen, defensive edge rushers, "You handle the quarterback," and they had a great defensive plan, and they executed.
And this is another one that leans back on B-Rob a little bit. This is one of those moments where I don't know if Pittsburgh would have defended, especially the zone read stuff, a little bit differently if it's Robinson back there as opposed to what was happening, but we'll just have to see. The other thing that was really noticeable early, and we were almost like laughing about it in the booth, is that he's been so precise, Jaden, like almost amazingly to this point in his career, still being a rookie. The fact that he wasn't early in the game and at other certain points, and there were some drops too that occurred, but his lack of pinpoint precision was striking yesterday, which is, if this is what a bad game looks like for him, we're in incredible shape with him.
Right.
But that was like what really stood out, I think, to us. We're so accustomed to seeing him thread the needle and be so accurate and so precise. It was surprising to not see it that way, specifically early in the game.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I went back and, I definitely was looking, what was going on in the passing game. There was some times where I think the first third down play, he tried to get to Zacchaeus, and Zacchaeus was running what we call a little whip route or snag route, and he's working away from the defense. And Jaden is getting pressure, and he had to get it out a little bit faster than he wanted to, and he was throwing the ball outside of the defender, but because he had to let it go a hair faster sooner than he wanted to, the kids wasn't out of his break enough. So that, the pressure of the defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers played a part of it. There were a couple times where he tried to hit some home routes in the middle of the field, and he's trying to hit him between two defenders, and sometimes he's trying to protect the receiver from taking a big hit. So he's maybe trying to get the receiver, trying to stop him. Receiver and him weren't on the same page, so the receiver maybe, continue to go and the ball's behind him. But Jaden's trying to keep him out of harm's way. So they weren't totally on the same page. And Jaden was inaccurate on a couple other throws. The one that he missed, Luke McCaffrey, that would have been a big play. So, we have grown so accustomed of him being so accurate. It was like, man, but he also made the great throw to Terry down the sideline. And he had some really nice throws.
Let me ask you about the offensive line. So Andrew Wiley didn't play yesterday. He was active, but he didn't play. Dan Quinn had talked to us after the game about how, and this falls in line with the way that they've treated all the players, which is, we're going to do what's best for them, even if it's not what's best for us in the moment. When push comes to shove, if this is week 18, I wonder if Andrew Wiley is playing in a game where they have to win, but we'll get there when we get there. But they haven't pushed Brian Robinson. They didn't rush Marshon Lattimore back. I know they want to have him, as soon as possible. They've done this with a number of other players where they're very careful about it. But the offensive line, they're in survival mode right now. We've reached that point in the season where they're fighting through it. Lucas wasn't available. Coleman's been injured twice already this year. We saw it on the sideline fighting through it. He played the whole game. Biotish ended up going out for the early drive of the second half, but he came back in, fighting through it. We know Allegretti's fighting through injuries right now, and they were down to what really is a third right tackle for them, because Lucas would be a swing tackle on the right side.
Right, he would be the guy.
Available. So they're surviving right now. So, how do you kind of see where the line is at this point?
You know what? That's injuries and attrition. That happens in the National Football League. I think they've done when you think back to off season, preseason, things like that, where there was a huge question mark about the offensive line. this offensive line has played outstanding. As I mentioned, I thought Trent Scott played a really good football game. He had maybe I think he had a lot of late pressure. T.J. Watt, late in the game, but you're not gonna pitch a shutout against T.J. Watt. I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. The injuries is just a part of it, and you're probably right. Maybe if it's week 18, Wiley plays. I don't know how much of a factor, knowing that we got a division game coming up on Thursday, a factor, and we're at his, because he's been so honest with us and saying, hey, we're always going to put the players' interests ahead of us. And if he felt like Wiley could not play and was not ready, it didn't do them any justice, or we've been doing the player a disservice by putting him out there. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it regardless of what's on the line. You mentioned Marshon Lattimore with his B-Rob, Marshon Lattimore. Yeah, this is a big game, but if we're going to harm you, we're not going to put you out on that football field. And that's the way it is. And, as far as the offensive line, Coleman, he had some rough moments in yesterday's game. Those edge rushers, Highsmith gave him some tough rushes. But, hey, it's a learning moment. You got great film now. Hey, these are some of the things as he's continued to learn these different pass rushers in the National Football League. He'll be better Thursday because of the experience he had yesterday.
There are a couple years ahead of us, Detroit. But I watched them last night after they, beat Houston in a game they had no business winning. They're on the road. They're making mistake after mistake after mistake. They're down 16 at half. They threw 5 interceptions. Like they flashed some number where no team has won trailing by that many points and throwing that many.
They threw 5 interceptions,
right? It was 5 interceptions in 50 years.
Wow.
Okay, and they go down there and they come back and they win. Right? So I look at yesterday with Washington, and I don't know that we know the full character longevity, but that is as character a win as you're going to get. What Detroit did last night, I think it's very telling about Houston too. But it's a character win. It shows you what they're made of, that they're never going to quit, that it doesn't matter when things go the wrong way. Chris Collinsworth was on the air going, this is good either way, because playoff games, bad things happen. Can you recover from it when you play a good team in January when you have to? And they just showed last night they're capable of it. This team, with the injuries they had, this was not timed up well. This was a perfect storm. That's a really good team. They showed up here way more healthy than they've been. They're coming off a bye. This team made a lot of mistakes. They muffed a punt. They had these penalties that attributed to scoring drives along the way. And in the end, they were a spot away from maybe winning anyway. They were a defensive penalty away late from maybe winning anyway. They had a couple of drops from maybe winning anyway. There's no sky falling here. They showed a tremendous amount of character based on relative health at key positions against a team that's coming off a break. I got to tell you, they've caught a bad week to be in the situation that they're in. They could use a bye really, really badly. But I do really appreciate that they were right there. And it's too bad that it didn't go the right way. But this is what it reminded me of watching the Lions last night. There's character here. This could have spun out the wrong way based on all of those conditions. And it didn't. And they could have, would have, should have won anyway.
Yeah, they don't make excuses. They talk about, rolling with the deep crew, and it's the whole adage, cliche, next man up, and that's really it. And you have guys. I think I was listening to an interview with Chris Rodriguez the other day, and they were talking about how one of the somebody had called, was telling the practice squad players, hey, what time their workout lift was going to be, and DQ says, no, don't call them practice squad. We don't call them that. This is all one group, 70 guys, and just the mentality hey, you're not on the 53-man active roster, but you are a part of this 70-man roster. And when your number's called, go produce. And Chris Rodriguez did it last week against the New York Giants. Trent Scott, I thought, like I said, he played a heck of a football game, man, going against one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. And That's just a part of it. Yeah, we would love a bye at this point in time, but that's not the reality. Still got to continue to grind out. The game is still going to be played on Thursday night, whether B. Rob plays or whether Marshon Lattimore plays, whether Wiley plays or anybody else who's beyond his plays. It's going to be played. So whoever's out there wearing that W, wearing that burgundy and gold or burgundy and white, whatever we're going to wear, we're going to be expected to play. They're going to be expected to play well, and we're going to be expected to go in there and win that football game.
Let me talk about one other trend with you that I want to see where you've landed on it and how you think it can be reversed as we head into this critical part of the season here where they're vying for the playoffs and maybe more division. Obviously this game Thursday is enormous as they head towards the idea of being the NFC East winner this year. 3 weeks in a row, they shut out the Bears in the first half, gave up 15 second half points. Against the Giants, had a nice lead, never was really felt in any kind of danger, but gave up 2 touchdowns late, including one really late that made it a game. And then yesterday against Pittsburgh, similarly, gave up late scores, big plays, one late in the game. They're giving up a lot of points in the second half. And they've been, this is a team that's gotten better and better and better metrically on defense. But the points are what matters. And this is 3 weeks in a row in the second half where they're giving up some points. So, what are you seeing in the second half that maybe this team can kind of, close some of these, whatever loopholes are going on out there to try to limit some of the scoring against them?
Everybody goes into halftime and they make their adjustments, on both sides of the ball. And when you've had success against a team, like we had success on teams in these first halves of the game, it seems like these other teams are making their adjustments, and we may not, I won't say make our adjustments, we may not play certain things the same way or play it as well as we would have liked to. The Pittsburgh Steelers, man, I looked at this. I had it on my chart from yesterday, and I just looked at it. Pittsburgh Steelers were outscoring teams 121 to 45 in the second quarter. In the second half. The NFL best. They were plus 76 points in the second half. Nobody in the National Football League puts up points the way the Pittsburgh Steelers do it. Part of that, hey, can we play a little bit better? Complimentary football, things like that. There was a busted coverage. I won't even call it a busted coverage. We allowed their back Warren to get out on a 3rd and 8 situation. They end up, he gets 29 yards. After we open the second half with a touchdown, the very next series for Pittsburgh, we allowed them to get 7 points, and they converted a 3rd and 8, when we kind of lost track of the running back for 29 yards. I'm thinking there was we got him in 2nd and 20. Allowed Pickens to make convert that for a first down, missed tackles, things like that. So need to be better on the tackling in that situation. Need to be more aware of the running back on that situation. So those are things that you have to focus and do all the things the right way for 60 minutes. And obviously we got to do a better job in the second half. We're doing those things.
I don't want to make this a Pittsburgh show, but they're built to win. They got a running game that's going to travel. They're going to be able to play in cold weather. They're a very physical team. They're very good up front on both sides of the ball. They got a tough team.
But here's the thing.
Not asking a lot of that quarterback. They don't even need him to make a bunch of big plays for them to be successful and in very tight physical games.
Yeah. So Bram, as you say, Pittsburgh built to win. But I look at that. I look at the 3rd and 8 conversion, and also that 2nd and 20 conversion, where, in my opinion, Pittsburgh didn't earn those plays that they made. That's on us. We didn't get enough depth on the 2nd and 20 play. Allowed a window for him to be able to throw that ball to Pickens, and we lost track of the running back on the 3rd and 8 situation. Those weren't Pittsburgh, earning those plays. That's on us. And we got to own that. And this is Tell the Truth Monday.
All right, let's talk about some of the defensive players. Second straight week, Jeremy Chinn's been everywhere. So double-digit tackle second straight week. Got a pick on a bad throw by Russ late, but made the play. Got the fumble recovery. Great play, Quan Martin at the goal line. It goes back to, again, Pittsburgh could have scored more in the second half. That was a great defensive play at the one, right? At the one,
Right.
they were driving. Chin's there. Like a couple weeks ago, Joe Witt Jr. said, we need to send him more, was the way he put it.
Mm-hmm.
And they've unlocked him the last couple of weeks. He has been everywhere for them.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And it was similar to kind of the game plan, how they deployed him in this game against the Steelers. Closer to the line of scrimmage, sitting on blitzes, he's been very active in the run front. And for him, maybe it was him also getting used to and more acclimated with this scheme that he's playing. This is his first year in this scheme. So, initially maybe the first 4, 5, 6 games, kind of feeling your way through the scheme, getting more comfortable and when you can take your shots and your responsibility and all those types of things, how you fit the communication pieces and things like that. I think Joe Witt was saying he's wanting him to be a leader more and vocalize, be more vocal on the back end because he's a quiet guy, but really putting pressure on him to, hey, we need you to be a communicator back there. And with a lot of guys, by forcing them to communicate more, it allows them to really rise to the occasion. That interception that he had on Russell Wilson, yeah, it was a overthrown ball, but the range that Chin showed to go out and make that catch and making that catch, that was an outstanding catch, man. Yeah, you're spot on with him, just really being just all over the football field, and that's something we thought we were getting, and we're happy that he's doing those types of things.
The other guy stands out to me again, and we're feeling his presence every week, is Frankie Louvu. Had a sack. They're utilizing him in many, many different ways. They're very creative with him and how they try to get him to make impact plays. It's interesting. I rewatched the Giants game that the Commanders played a couple weeks ago, and to get ready, obviously to take on them or take on the Steelers, just to rewatch. And it was interesting. Like, there were some mistimed or misread moments that involved him where he was running around the edge and they were running a run play. So either this was just kind of a mistimed call or the formation was a changeup by the Giants. I'd have to ask the coaching staff that kind of fooled them a little bit. This week was different. The energy was there at the appropriate moments. Like, we saw him and you felt his presence because maybe this does go back to Pittsburgh ain't fooling you with what they're doing. They're going to line up and they're going to do exactly what they've done. They're just daring you to stop it. And I did feel Luvu's presence again in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, no, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm sure they had a lot of tendencies based on personnel groupings, down and distance, where they're at on the field position. And with that, that's when you're getting your call, your game plan together, your call sheet together. If you have a team who may be, let's call it 80% run in this situation or 80% pass in this situation based on personnel, down and distance, formation. So you use all those different tidbits and nuggets and you get on the field, and like when you got there's some times where you get 100% deals. Like, this is 100% what they do in this situation with this personnel grouping at this part of the field or wherever. So when you get those type of things and you got a certain call teed up, you do it. And if they do something differently, they just got you. But you're gonna play the data is what they like to call it, the data. Yeah, but no, Frankie's being Frankie. He was more impactful, like you said, in this ball game as opposed to we felt his presence more in this game as opposed to last week against the Giants. The guy that I thought played extremely well, and I don't know if you saw this as well or had a chance to really dig into it, Deron Payne. Payne played an outstanding football game. He didn't, get the sack number. I don't even know how many tackles he had, but when I say he played a monster game, just setting edge. They had him play a defensive end, 3 technique, nose, shade. He lined up all over the field, and he was controlling people, destroying blocks, taking on double teams, getting off blocks, making tackles, creating pushing the pocket, things like that. Man, he played a phenomenal game.
I mean, last year, like you remember, they started moving him around late And people don't remember it because the record was what the record was, and people weren't paying attention to the little things. But they had moved him outside last year, totally re-energized him. And in the second half of the season, he really turned it on at all those different positions. And this is all new defense for him too. And we're moving him around a little bit. And I agree with you. I was going to mention him that he really stood out. It's a very good sign. If they're going to get the best of him now, moving forward, you need your best players to win in the end in the critical games. He is one of their best players. And I felt his presence too. I agree with you. And there's something about moving him around a little bit that seems to kind of energize him.
Yeah, it probably forces him to. I'm gonna be able to have, and then sometimes it might be, hey, this is the wink link. We want to get you rushing against him, things like that. So it's similar. Think about what they've done with Jeremy Chin, bringing him closer to the line of scrimmage, sitting him on blitzes a lot more. Those types of things, kind of getting him involved early in the game. So with a guy like a Payne, he goes into the game knowing, hey, I'm gonna line up in multiple positions. I'm gonna get an opportunity to go against this tackle. I mean, Pittsburgh's their left tackle, maybe it was a tight end. I think it was their left tackle. He tried to block Payne on the run play. Payne stood him up, got him with one arm, just hold him, destroys, gets rid of him, and makes a tackle for no gain. And so that was the type of thing that he could do.
One other name I want to bring up because he didn't make his debut, and I know everybody's hopeful that Marshon Lattimore is going to play sooner rather than later. When they acquired him at the trade deadline, he had missed the last Saints game that he was a part of because of a hamstring injury. That was a carryover, and that's the reason why he did not play this past weekend. So with the quick turnaround, until we hear from Dan Quinn, et cetera, we don't know if he's available or not. And so I go into this saying, I don't know whether he's playing Thursday or not. We're going to find out very soon because they're going to have to put out an injury report on Tuesday. So we're going to find out very soon whether he's able to go or not. I would just say this, because I know a lot of people saw some big plays, especially late, and are screaming for, we need him on the field, we need him on the field. I would advocate not to rush him. Like, the point of getting him in here is for the long term. The last thing you'd want to do is stick him out there marginalized and have him exacerbate it, and defeats the purpose of getting him in the first place. So I hope he can play, and maybe he can, and this is a moot point. But if it isn't, I would advocate don't fall under the pressure, and this coaching staff hasn't the whole time, to put him out there because you feel like you need him against A.J. Brown on Thursday. I think you wait till he's ready too, and then you unleash him on this defense. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Oh, Brown, he's not playing until he's 100%. So we can wish, won't hope, whether you're a fan, whoever you may be, he may even want to play. But unless he is 100% and he can fully, play at the level that he needs to play, like run full speed and change the directions, all those types of things. With hamstring injuries, unless you feel like you can fully, let it all go, let it fully loose, especially playing that type of position where you're going to have some, 30, 40, 50-yard sprints, chasing and covering receivers down the field. And you're doing this for 60 minutes, for 60, 70 plays in a ball game. If they don't feel like he can do that fully, he's not going to touch that field. Whether it's Thursday night, next game against who we play, the Cowboys or whoever we play, and so I'm not, when he's out there, I'll be happy, but until then, I'm not going to concern myself with it.
All right, so let's turn the page here. You had to do this before. This Thursday thing has become the norm. It's tough. Got to go on the road. Difficult opponent.
Yes.
Big game here. And you got to turn the page on what was a heartbreaking loss. So what's Monday in the building for the locker room as they try to get rid of yesterday and move on really, really, really quickly?
Yeah, it's tough, especially when you're dealing with the loss. You got to kind of put that film to bed. The different things that you could have done better. So you have to have those meetings. You have to have you tell the truth Monday and go through that. But then now it's time to also switch gears and get ready for the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of times when you have a loss, the best thing about it is, man, I get to go out and play on a Thursday night. I don't have to sit around and wait until Sunday. So having that short week is actually a benefit when you're coming off a loss. It's gonna be how can you get your body, ready to play on Thursday night, and depending on where you're at in your career, how many snaps you've had on your body, that process may be a little bit longer for others, and it could be different for others. But doing all the things you need to do to recover and get yourself ready for that Thursday night game, it's more difficult on a team that's traveling because you got to go through that part of short week travel. And the great thing is it's not a long flight to Philly, but it's still adds another element to that Thursday night game. But you turn the page and you start preparing for Philadelphia today, and they'll start looking at that film today.
Big difference, obviously, with them is Saquon Barkley now being in that uniform. I don't know how much you've seen of their rush offense, which has been formidable with running backs that clearly aren't as good as him. He's a Hall of Fame caliber player. He did the ridiculous backwards leapfrog. Honestly, when their offense wasn't really going early in the season, he was the reason why they were winning games by being prolific on the ground. So
Yes.
How do you think about Saquon in that offense?
Man, it's almost not fair to. It's similar to when we did the Baltimore game when it was talking about the NFL allowing Derrick Henry to join the Baltimore Ravens offense and Lamar Jackson. Doesn't seem fair, but similar situation when you think about Philadelphia, who's over the last few years they've had the best, if not the best, one of the best offensive lines in football. And I know Jason Kelsey has retired, but the center they got now, I think his name is Jurgensen, if I'm not mistaken, if memory serves me correct. They haven't missed a beat.
So let's talk about Jalen Hurts a little bit. A few years ago, zone read was the dangerous thing that they had with him. He was an expert at it and was killing people. They've gotten away from that. Only they can really answer this. Some people think it was maybe he's taking too many hits. His knee wasn't, as strong as it was specifically a year ago. You don't see a lot of that kind of running from him, but he is dangerous. How do you think about Hurts now at this stage of his career?
I think they'll have to be strategic, and he'll have his moments where he'll keep it because even if he's running it, let's call it 2, 3, 4 times a game with those zone reads, we have to prepare defensively for that. It's just how it is. That's how it goes. We have to spend a little bit of time of preparing for that. They may go in there with a similar type of game plan with that the Pittsburgh Steelers had against us. Hey, we're going to maybe attack Saquon on that zone read and force Hurts to keep the ball. Kind of pick your poison. Would you rather have Saquon running the ball, or would you rather have Hurts? I think the answer is I'd rather Hurts to keep the ball. So I'm gonna be tackling or going right after Saquon in any potential read option type plays. And and when he does run, rally and make tackles, limit those gains.
A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is, in my opinion, one of the top 5 best receivers in the NFL right now. Been a major problem for this team over the last few years since he's shown up there. How are you thinking about A.J. Brown Thursday night?
Well, I'm thinking about, we'll definitely deploy a different defensive strategy, I believe. Joe Witt Jr., Dan Quinn, they know the Philadelphia Eagles. They've had battles with this team against Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Smith. So they know these wide receivers for them. They'll have a plan. They'll know how to deal with them. So I'm not I don't feel like it would be a similar type of results or type of games that AJ has had in the past, just because of maybe let's say the defensive strategies will be vastly different.
You have a good point. We both have a lot of homework to get ready for these games, and in these short weeks, it's tough, to turn around. And I typically just want to get ready for the team in the here and now. But
right.
Throwing on a couple of those Cowboys-Eagles games from a year ago might be very instructive to figure out how are we actually thinking about dealing with them. How did Dallas deal with them a year ago? I might have to go take a look at that.
Oh no, it's definitely worth looking at, and I'm sure the Eagles they'll probably look at it a little bit, but they have enough. They'll have 10 games of our defense with Joe Witt Jr. Leading the charge. But if you any opportunity or edge or advantage you think you can have, it would behoove you not to go back and look at those games and hey, how did they do? How did they defend the zone reads? How did they match up with the receivers? Did they lean a safety over the top of Brown? How did they cover Smith? Those types of things. So it makes sense for you to go back and look at those things and just to kind of get an idea of what that game plan could potentially look like.
This is going to be an interesting one too. I mean, obviously, we've been part of these last couple of years where they've been extremely physical, very close games between these two teams. This is going to be interesting this time around because this is a whole new group. Jaden Daniels and company, they haven't been on a losing streak yet. They have not lost two in a row to anybody. Daniels, we saw him in the locker room. He does not like losing. He said that in a press conference where someone asked him about it, and he just didn't even know what to say other than just to say, I really don't like losing. You could feel this in this locker room. We weren't in there when Sam Cosmi spoke, but heard about it, that he got up and spoke. And he's someone who's really eloquent, great guy, but doesn't do a lot of that. So he felt compelled to get up and say something as a leader on the team. I think I liked what they said after the Baltimore loss, which was the last one that they've had. And I like what I
Yeah.
hear coming out of this one. I think it's a tall task. It's a turnaround, tough place to play, very good team. A lot of injuries at the wrong time for this team that I don't like. That adds up to this is going to be tough. But I like what I hear and the mentality that they're bringing to all of this as they head into what is going to be they go up there and win. Everything is back on the table again for them.
Yeah. Now, Bram, as you were talking, I went and looked at the box score from the Eagles Cowboys game last night. Jalen Hurts rushed the ball 7 times for 56 yards and 2 touchdowns. I didn't I didn't look at the game. I was still kind of licking my wounds from yesterday's loss to the Steelers. But yeah, he ran the ball 7 times and for 56 yards and had 2 rushing TDs. AJ Brown, 5 receptions for 109 yards. So, the problems are the problems. So we'll have to. I'm sure we'll have a game plan ready to deal with those guys and see how Philadelphia responds to that.
So, like, I'm not in the business of counting anybody out, but the Giants just lost in Germany. They're 2-8. Washington's already swept them. They've already lost one to the Eagles. It would take a miracle for them to get back into any kind of discussion about a race. Dallas is really going the wrong way. Dak's going on IR. Their media is just
Yeah.
every year is so off about them that for them to kind of turn this around and be a factor again for a division race feels unlikely at this point. They've been blown out at home. Someone told me some number that they're like minus 110 in point differential at home this year. Like they've been blown out over and over and over at home. So it's hard to figure without Dak, especially, that they'll turn it around. This two-team race. I mean, that's where we are right now. Two-team race for this division. And meeting one of two is in a couple of days. As you think about what is now going to be the last 7 games of the season, 2 of them against them, what is the difference for Washington to be a division winner, let alone a wild card playoff team this year?
I think it's going to be us playing the type of football that we played to win those seven games, having an outstanding run game and being more balanced on offense, not being so reliant in the passing game. Just obviously getting a healthy B-Rod will make a difference. Defensively, we can't have the penalties that hurt us. We can't have allow teams to drive 90 yards, have these long drives against us. Have to limit explosive plays, not allow especially thinking about the Eagles because we got 2 games against them, not allowing their wide receivers to have big chunk yardage plays. Dealing with Saquon Barkley, we got to be great in run defense. Recipe for us winning those games won't be any different than the recipe has for us one of the games we've already won.
They've got the schedule gets favorable after this one. Let's see if they can go up there and win it. They've got 2 more home games before the bye week, both of them against under 500 teams. One aforementioned Dallas, which, listen, I've lived this rivalry my whole life. You don't. There is no guarantee of anything either side
Correct.
ever in that rivalry. Still, you feel like you got a real good shot at home against a team that's very marginalized. Then they'll play another under 500 team. They got a shot here to be set up for a run post their bye, and a big time run if they can go up to Philadelphia and knock that team off on Thursday. So this is feeling like you want to show the resolve, the toughness, the resiliency, we're going to be there no matter what state our team is in. Don't discount us. This is a massive message potentially about where this organization and this specific team is if they go up there and knock the Eagles off.
Oh, 100%. You get an absolute 100%. The only game in football on television will be us. Everybody will be watching. I mean, I don't know if you probably pay attention to. It seems like every time you flip on sports on the channel, they're talking about the Washington Commanders, man. They're talking about us. Imagine we go in there, first place, right now on the line, and go in there and knock them off. Oh man, it would be crazy, crazy. But I know this. I know Dan Quinn, the way he handles his business, the way they look at, prepare and focus on the fight that's right in front of them. They're only looking at this game against the Philadelphia Eagles. They're not looking at, hey, we do this. We got these 2 opponents coming out. They're not thinking about what's down the road. We can do that because, we're not going to strap it up on Thursday night. But if they go in there and handle business, yeah, that definitely sets you up for to really do some damage. Be in a great position, I should say.
All right, let's do no championship belt, by the way, this week. We don't do it off of losses. So the championship belt stays in the hands of the current champion. Let's do story time here for a minute. You got to have some doozies from playing in Philadelphia. What comes to mind when you think about playing in Philadelphia?
Oh man, you put me on the spot here. Yeah, I played. I loved Philly. Was one of my favorite places to play. I just all the stadiums that I played in on the road, that might have been my favorite, just because the fans, they're gonna be very engaged. They're gonna let you know how they feel. They Monday Night Football, my first time playing there with Washington, we're driving into the stadium, and they started egging our bus, throwing the eggs in our bus, and having a few choice words, and the one finger salute, and as we're going out of that tunnel, getting ready for the game to start, I mean, they're yelling, they're over the banisters or whatever, yelling, the railings, yelling choice words, and I felt like a gladiator coming into that the arena, so to speak, and I'm loving it. I'm just like, oh yeah, are you not entertained? Because I'm about to entertain you. Believe me. We beat the Eagles on that Monday Night Football. So that's one of the ones that comes to mind right away. We've had some success. We had some success in Philly when I was wearing the burgundy and gold. But I loved it, man, because their fans are going to be extremely engaged. They're going to say some choice words to you, but it's nothing like going in there and winning that football game against a team like that.
It's really funny. Every time I go up there, the oddest thing is they got the great food scene there, great entertainment, great city. You go out, everybody is so nice. And then you go to their game, and it's like Mad Max Thunderdome. It's like they've been given permission to be different people. Like, you'd think that this is how they act all the time because of the perception of what happens at the games. But if you go out in Philadelphia, they couldn't be nicer. Like, it's like some kind of strange permission structure occurs when they walk into that stadium. They become completely different people.
You're probably right, because I would go out and go to restaurants. Even when I was playing, I would go, hey, we get into the city. I'm gonna go out and have some food and eat. And they,
Philadelphia.
a lot of times they knew who I was, and some places you might not want to eat it in certain restaurants. Like I don't know, they might put something in my food, have me I'm on the toilet all night, whatever. But Philly was Philly wasn't like that, man. They like you said, they hey man, I respect you. I love the way you play the game. Even to this day, when I'm traveling, we're traveling, whether it's all around the city and all around the country, and you run into fans of different teams all over. And the Eagles fans, they be like, "Hey man, I love the way you play the game." And even though I'm an Eagles fan, they'll start that off. Even though I'm an Eagles fan, I appreciated the way you play the game and stuff like that. Very respectful.
The one I remember most too, and we'll leave it with this, was, well, there's been a lot of them through the years that I've gotten to cover or be around. The Sean Taylor game where he had the big defensive play that turned a season, ended up in a playoff years ago was incredible. That was an incredible moment there late in the season. But the one we did a couple years ago when Philadelphia was undefeated and it was on Monday Night Football, it was the B-Rob game where I remember you walked up from the field and said, "I just saw Brian Robinson and he told me he's going to go ham on them." And
Yeah.
right? That he did. That's one of the most that we've done together that I can remember. That one sticks out to me as the don't assume anything, because that team was rolling. They were undefeated. This team did not have a lot of expectations on it. Walked up there and physically mauled that team. And I'm hoping we get something like that on Thursday night.
Man, that was a thing of beauty. And for the viewers who may not know what ham is, it's an acronym for heart as a yeah, you figure it out. and he just had this look in his eye, and I was like, man. And sure enough, he was running that rock, and I think we ran the ball about 40 times, maybe even more than 40 times in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a thing of beauty. Four takeaways in that game. It was executed to perfection, going in there physically, dominating that team, an undefeated Eagles team, as you mentioned. But it's gonna take a valiant effort. This Eagles team, they're tough. They realize they've been in a lot of battles, a lot of fights. They know what's at stake right now. First place is on the line of the division, even though we still got a lot of games left. But you win that first one, and you kind of put yourself in the driver's seat, at this point in time.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. It's going to be a great one. Thursday night up in Philadelphia. That'll do it for the booth review. For Big Fletch, I'm Bram. We'll see you after the Eagles game.